Do you need water?
I think I'm okay for now. Yeah, should be good. Thank you.
Hi, welcome back to StoryHive On Location Kelowna. I'm Robb and we're on location in Kelowna live with another inspiring episode brought to you by TELUS STORYHIVE. Today we are speaking with Karin from Designs with Karin, and she is an incredibly talented artist who upcycles furniture into masterpieces that she sells and has made an incredible career off of it. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
I'm excited to sit down and dive into your story. So let's hop into it right away.
Sure.
Where are you from, and how did you get into upcycling furniture?
So where I'm from originally is Oshawa, Ontario. It's about an hour east of Toronto. And I started there as a pharmacy professor for many years. Was actually in the field of pharmacy for many years, but worked in retail first and then worked in hospital and then always wanted to teach, so got into that. And then I moved to BC about 10 or so years ago and worked at Interior Health downtown for a while and on the education team and pharmacy team. But my mom and dad were both sick, living in Ontario on their own, had to move them out here, and I needed a way to be able to work from home and be able to look after them at the same time. So left IH and started this as a business and thought it would be temporary, but it turned into a full-time career, and here we are.
What an incredible transition to go from Interior Health and dealing with pharmaceuticals and the industry to hopping into arts.
I have always done this though, as a hobby. I have always liked doing, refinishing and anything artistic and creative. So it's a big transition career-wise, but it's always been part of my life. That's just something that I've always enjoyed doing. So it was a good way to take a hobby and turn it into a job and still be able to make money and look after them while they were living with me. So yeah, worked out.
So for you've always been doing it. What was the first initial piece that made you want? Was it like, did you see a used chair?
I had my mom's cedar chest when I was 16 years old. I think she gave me her cedar chest. I think I was 16, and I didn't like it at the time. Now I wish I had never refinished it because it actually was really, really nice. But at the time I didn't like it, and being 16, I didn't really know what I was doing. In hindsight, looking back, I've come a long way, but I sanded it down and spray painted it, of all things, which is taboo to do, but I put spray paint on it, and I've since refinished it again and made it look nice. Got it back to being in a good condition, but that was the original one that I first did, and yeah, kind of just snowballed from there. When I got my first house, when I was 24, I needed furniture, and I needed it to be cheap, and went and bought a bunch of used furniture and refinished that as well, and furnished my house with it. So it was just never done as a job. It was always done for personal reasons and for my own home. But yeah, to turn it into a job has been kind of fun.
That's so cool. That's why I love my job, is the inspiring stories, because like I've always messed around with that as well. And as a woodworker, it's not like an easy skill to just pick up on. You have to be dedicated to want to do that, because it is very frustrating.
It's true.
Doing the full circle moment and coming back to the original piece that inspired you. How was that? How was that moment?
It's interesting. It's almost inspirational in itself, just because I can look at that and see what I did originally as a kid, and I had good intentions, but looking back, I see how far I've come. So it's kind of an inspirational thing as well, that kind of makes you realize that you've come a long way and your skills have improved over the years, and you now do actually know what you're doing. I can call myself a professional at this point. But yeah, it's inspirational, and it just kind of makes me, I have a lot of people who come to me, even on my Instagram feed. I have people who come to me and ask for advice, and I used to do something called Tip Tuesday. So people would come to me and ask how they can refinish their own piece, and they're sometimes unsure if they can, and when they know, everybody starts somewhere, right? So they know that my first piece didn't look very good either, but it's come a long way, and it kind of shows them that they can as well if they really try to. But yeah, kind of going back to what you said about how people sometimes don't realize how hard it is. I get a lot of people who drop off their pieces that they've started working on and they can't finish. So they'll drop it off, they've started sanding it, they don't realize it's going to take them hours of sanding, and they give up and bring it here. So yeah, it's definitely not as easy as it looks, and there's more repair work that needs to be done, and drawers that need to be fixed, and new legs that needed to be added. But yeah, I get a lot of half-done jobs that people give up on, and they bring them here.
I was going to ask that because for a long time, I had a hobby of taking guitars and sanding them down and then staining them and making just basically redoing an old guitar that I didn't like the color for. And once you start sanding the paint off those guitars, it's like weeks of work, and you're like, yeah, I have like 5 unfinished, half-sanded guitars sitting in a bin right now, and I'm like, never touching those again.
Oh,
so
exactly. And I hear guitars really dry out in the Okanagan because there's no moisture here, so the wood gets really dry and cracked and needs to be conditioned a lot. Yeah, I've heard that.
Do you have to deal with that with the furniture as well?
I do. I have furniture balm. That's why a lot of the drawer glides and the drawer slides, they tend to get a little bit, crunchy after a while. So putting some wood conditioner and some furniture balm on those helps the drawers to continue to slide, because they really do get dried out too. I think it's just the Okanagan heat and the sun, and it's not like other areas where there's some moisture in the air, so it definitely affects the wood.
When you go about starting a piece, do you ever have a vision of what you see this piece being, and it ends up becoming something else?
Yes. I wonder where you're going to go with that. I'll look at a piece, because sometimes I buy them on Marketplace unfinished. I'll look at it and I'll have an idea what I want to do. And then I get it home, I take off the hardware, I sand it down. And once I get it sanded down, that's when the true vision comes to me. So a lot of the times when I first look at it on Marketplace, I see something that's an idea, but it ends up morphing into something completely different by the time I see the actual sanded down raw wood, look at the wood grain. Sometimes I plan on painting it and then I see the wood grain, I'm like, there's no way I can paint that, I have to stain it instead. So yeah, it kind of speaks to me. I know that sounds cliche, but it kind of does speak to me as I'm working through it. So yeah.
And looking at the stuff you do, it's elegant, modern, but it definitely has like this unique hand feel. And that's what I was enjoying, like when I went through your pieces on your Instagram, at least, and was looking at them. There's some stunning stuff in there. There's one with like 3 arches that I was
the
just,
bookshelf.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I want that. And like that to me is like to see pieces not just so like cookie cutter,
right?
You know what I mean? Like it's everything to see that beauty brought back for something that was potentially could have been thrown away,
ready for the
right?
dump. Yeah, a lot of the times they are literally curbside, or they're ready for the dump, or they're being sold on Marketplace for $20, because even in the ads they say if it's not picked up today, it's going to the dump. But that's why I like the custom work that I do too, because like you say, all of those pieces end up being one of a kind. You're not going to get that in the store, because the client, or sometimes they ask me to come up with an idea for them, but they'll come up with an idea and I'll see their vision through, but you're not going to be able to get that at the store. You go to, any big box store, you can buy a piece of furniture, but everybody else could have the same one. And with doing this, everybody can have something different. Even if it's the same piece of furniture, you can make it look different by refinishing it and having different color options and whatever. So yeah, people really enjoy that.
Do you have a favorite type of wood that you've got to work with?
Not necessarily a favorite type of wood, but I have a favorite style of piece that I do. And yeah, a lot of people don't like maple, but I do like maple. But yeah, I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a favorite type of wood. I have more of a favorite style, more so than a favorite type of wood.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I find when, like you were saying earlier, when you take down that paint and you finally see the wood grain, sometimes it's almost like it's a sin for what they've covered up.
Totally.
Especially like looking at furniture and guitars, and wood itself is so beautiful, and it's got a life of its own, which is one thing I love, is you see the grains and you don't really think about how long that piece, like how old that piece of wood is, right? And then to turn that into something that gets to be used every day, it's magical.
And even just to keep it in someone's family, because a lot of the times the pieces I get are, people who are 30 or 40 years old, and it belonged to their mom and it belonged to their grandma, and they don't want to get rid of it, but it doesn't suit the style of their home. So a lot of the custom work I get, they're keeping it in their family, which is pretty cool as well. So yeah,
I think that
it's
is
a nice option.
And that's cool that you kind of get to modernize something that is very, I don't want to say antique, but I guess it is considered antique now. Because, like, have you ever got to work with, like, 150-year-old pieces of furniture?
Not 150. I think the oldest one I worked on was around 110 or so years old. but not 150. No.
Craftsmanship is so different,
Yeah.
right? Like I can imagine trying to disassemble that to work on it would
Yeah.
be a total different experience trying to
I'm
understand.
still dying to get my hands on nap joints. I've had dovetails many times, which is really cool, but nap joints, I've never had an opportunity to work on that. And I think a lot of times too, because Kelowna is not a really old city, we don't get a lot of super old furniture, and any of the old furniture I get is usually has a maker's mark on it from Winnipeg or from Toronto or from the East Coast somewhere, because people have moved here and brought it with them. But there's not really a lot of old pieces in Kelowna, because Kelowna itself isn't old enough to have all those antique pieces. So yeah, I'm envious of some of my friends that are in the States doing this, and they're in Texas and they're in Kentucky, and they're working on these like historic pieces of furniture, and it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Are there like events and gatherings for these kind of
Yeah, they
arts?
do. Not a lot, like not a lot, in comparison to other industries, but there are some, meetup things that people do. I can't even think of the name of the one. Hopefully you won't put that on camera. But yeah, there is one that they go to, and it's like a convention for refinishers. And you can actually go, and they have all the different paint companies, stain companies are there, different tool companies like Festool and Surf Prep, the ones that I use for sanding. Usually they'll show up at these places as well. So
That's so cool.
It's kind of cool.
So they have demonstrations going on? That would
Yeah.
be so
Yeah.
cool to see different minds
Yeah,
melding.
because there's different types of furniture paint too, because you can get chalk paint, you can get mineral paint, all different types. So they often will even show like differences from the different manufacturers of the different types of paint. They'll have like little stations where you can try out the paints and see how they feel going on and what the self-leveling looks like and all that kind of thing. So
That's
yeah, it's
cool.
pretty fun.
When you initially started, what was the biggest challenge for you?
I think just learning what the prep steps are, because a lot of people want to just get right to the paint, and I'm guilty of that as well. When I first started, you get a piece of furniture, like you said, how hard can it really be? So you think, okay, I can just take this piece of furniture and put paint on it, but that's not going to work. You have to put the time into the prep. I think any refinisher, that's probably their least favorite step, is doing all the prep work, but it's probably the most important step. If you don't do that, it's not going to stick, it's not going to last, you don't have a quality piece. So you really have to take the time I vacuum out every single piece I get with my shop vac, like head to toe. I literally scrub it right down with a TSP solution, get all the grime and all the old furniture wax and everything else that's on there has to completely come off. You really thoroughly do need to degrease it to get the proper, like the product to stick. And then you can kind of get into repairs and filling in anything and sanding that down, and then get into the painting. But all that prep, that takes way longer than the painting itself, but that's the key. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to have a product that's going to last. So it just took a while. When I first started, it took a while to know how to prep and what the proper steps were, and I can't skip it. I had to realize that. So no shortcuts.
What is the average time for a piece? I know that's going to vary depending on pieces, woods,
Right.
and what you're doing, but it's
On
not a
average?
day process. You're looking
No.
at weeks.
So usually when I take a piece in, I always tell my clients that it's going to be 2 weeks from start to finish. And I'm not working on it for 2 straight weeks, because I usually juggle 2 or 3 pieces at a time. But I like to have it for a couple weeks so I can bounce from one to the next to the next. And there's dry time that you have to add in, especially with stains, because they take longer to dry than the paints do. On average though, for say like a 6 drawer or a 9 drawer dresser, I'd probably spend maybe 12 to 16 hours ish if I added it all up start to finish. Sometimes a little less, sometimes a little more, depending on how much repair I have to do and what condition it's in, but I'd say 12 to 16 hours probably for a 6 drawer dresser.
It's a lot quicker than I thought. That's incredible.
But I have good tools.
I was going to say, you've
It
probably
wasn't
become
like that
super
before.
efficient.
Yeah, I would have said probably before it would have been about 20 to 22 hours before I got my Festool. So I have a specialty sander now, so I don't have to sand outside. It has a dust extractor with a HEPA filter. I can work in the garage. It's way easier, and it's a lot more effective. Like, I'm not hand sanding anything anymore, so definitely saves a lot of time by having that. I tried spraying for a while too instead of hand painting, and that would also save me time, but I just didn't like it. And I can get a factory finish because I've developed my skill enough by hand sanding. I can get a factory finish by hand painting now, so I don't even have to do a sprayer. And I find that the hand painting is what I enjoy because it's therapeutic and that's my art. When I start spraying, I feel like I'm just at a factory, so I don't really want to do that. Even though it would speed me up, it's not I don't find that enjoyable. So
yeah, there's a big difference between being fast and being talented.
Right, yeah.
And that's where hand
and if you're
is better,
artistic,
right?
You want the art, right? Like you want to have the ability to put your hands on the piece and not just machine do it. You want to actually have the ability to work with it by hand and see it come to life. So yeah, that matters more to me than the speed.
And I think that that's kind of speaks towards your craft as well, that you would rather take the time to do it properly than just to blast out a product to get the money. And I think that that's what clients and people will see.
Yep.
You know, you can't really fake it in this day and age.
No, definitely not. And I think having repeat customers speaks to that as well. When I get people that come back a second time with a second piece, a third time with another piece, and keep on coming back or referring me to other people, then I know that they've appreciated my work and that their product is what they expected it to be. So yeah, kind of is a testament to that. Yeah.
And I don't think that you see a lot of it because there's not a lot of people that I know that they're willing to put the investment into refurbishing things in general. A lot of people are more into, I'd rather just buy one.
Yeah, quite often. And a lot of people, there's not too many refinishers. I know a lot of refinishers in the Okanagan, but there's very few refinishers that do custom work. I'm one of the only ones that will take on customs, so I get a lot of recommendations for that reason as well. I've had clients, well, people who have turned into clients, I've had them go to other refinishers looking for a piece and not being able to find what they needed, or taking a piece to them to say, can you refinish my dining room table, or can you refinish my grandma's dresser or whatever, and they won't take it on. So then those other refinishers recommend the client to me, and then I end up getting that business. But
that's
yeah,
cool.
There's not too many people in the Okanagan that do custom work. So yeah, kind of a niche.
And that's, I think what's made it super easy, I don't want to say easy because it's probably been a challenge to build it into a business, but to be the one who is willing to do something different,
right,
kind of separates you from everyone else.
It's a little bit of a skill too, just knowing how to work with your client. Like you have to have a special special skill set for that. But yeah, I feel like I can work with them well. I listen to what they are asking for. AI has been helpful because sometimes they'll want to kind of envision what they want their piece to look like, but they're not a visual person. So I can take their piece and I can put it into something like ChatGPT or whatever and tell it to show me what that piece would look like painted green or painted blue, and I can show that to the client. And it helps me to know that I'm seeing their vision properly when I can show them a photo of it before I've even refinished it, and they can say, yeah, that's what I'm looking for, or no, it's not. I used to do diagrams, like just rough, pencil crayon diagrams, and give that to the client and say, is this kind of what you're looking for? And they would approve it or not, and then I would send them pictures as I'd go every day, another picture, do you want it lighter, do you want it darker, whatever it may be. But now it does make it a little bit easier with AI, so yeah, it worked out pretty well.
I love getting to speak with creative people and seeing their opinions on AI, because each industry has a different opinion, I find, and it's really cool to see how you're utilizing it to make it easier, because there are a lot of people out there who can say what they want, but they can't visually get it out there.
Right.
And I'm one of those people, so to be able to visually see something and be like, yeah, that's what I want, it's so much easier in life.
And it saves me from having to do a crappy diagram because that's not my art. I'm not good at that. But yeah, no, it's worked out well. The only other, I don't know, I'm hit and miss with AI. There's certain things about it that I like and that I agree with, and there's certain things I don't. One of the other things that I do find helpful is if I have a really, really big piece, I can't always get it in my house to stage it, which I would like to do ideally, but it's not always possible. So sometimes I just stage it in the garage, and I have the garage door behind, but that doesn't make for a nice backdrop. But I'll still stage the piece, and then I'll have AI create a fake background for it, so it at least looks like it's in a living room or in a dining room or in a bedroom if I have to, if I can't get it in my house. So it's saved the day a little bit by being able to do that without having to get it inside or buy a staging wall or whatever it may be. I can just use AI to do it.
Master another program like Photoshop just to
Exactly.
be able to, yeah.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
definitely understand that being helpful. I did the same concept with the merch for my hip hop.
Oh, okay.
I had a vision that I wanted and asked AI to design, like to give me the rough idea, and then I sent that idea to the artist who I paid to do my
Okay.
art. And
Cool.
it came out even 10 times better, obviously, because it was an artist, but because I can't draw,
Right.
it was so much easier just to like describe it
Right,
and send
yeah.
it to him, be like, can you make this for me, but
Exactly.
good?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I can imagine that technology constantly progressing also makes, like, especially social media, the ease of getting out there a lot easier. Do you ever do work for out of the area? Like, do you ever have pieces sent in from out of the country or from
To
across
work on
the
for
country?
refinishing?
Yeah.
No, not yet. I've done, I thought you were going to ask about social media, because I have done social media for somebody in Ontario and looked after their social media marketing for a real estate friend, but no, I haven't done any pieces from out of country yet. That is actually something that I've thought about. I haven't even shipped out of BC, but I've looked at doing shipping as well, so I could actually list it online and be able to ship the piece Canada-wide, but haven't yet ventured into that territory, but definitely on my list to do some investigation and research.
That's pretty mind-blowing that you've been able to build a career in a business strictly with just BC's clientele.
Yeah.
Like,
My paints I ship Canada-wide because I actually carry a line called Melange. I bring them in from Texas. And then people will shop. I have like a little store downstairs, and they'll shop at the store, and then if they're local, they'll just shop here and bring it home. But if not, I have a website, and anyone in Canada can go onto the website. I don't ship outside of Canada yet, but I can't because of some restrictions. But people in Canada can have it shipped Canada-wide. So I do ship the paint, but I don't ship any finished pieces at this point in time. I deliver within the Okanagan, but I don't do shipping.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's one thing. I was speaking with my friend Mike, who does stained glass, and he's done big pieces that he
Okay.
has to ship. There's been pieces that he drove himself because he's like, I just don't
Yeah,
trust the
it'd be
shipping.
nerve-wracking.
Yeah. And when you get to like big scale pieces, like, because I'm sure you've done vanities and stuff where you have to deal with the giant mirrors
Yeah.
as well. That's
Yeah.
a whole other process of how do you
Totally.
package that up.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things that I kind of go back and forth on. There's things that I could see that would be an advantage for that and would bring me out further, as far as outreach goes. But at the same time, I just don't even know that I want to get involved with that. And then the insurance and the risk of it breaking or getting scratched or getting damaged in transit, and then whose fault is it? It's just, yeah,
There's
a bit
a
of a
lot of
snowball. So I'm
logistics,
not
yeah.
so sure. Yeah, not sure.
You mentioned social media, and you do have quite a big following, especially for being local and having. Obviously, you'll find people who are interested in it, but how has the social media helped you in building the process and your business? Has it been one of the key factors? Because I find a lot of people either are one way or the other. And
Yeah, I've found it to be a pretty key factor, especially Instagram. I have Instagram, I have YouTube, but I haven't developed my YouTube a lot, and I have Facebook, but I'm definitely the most active on Instagram. And I grew a lot. I think the majority of my growth happened probably about 2 years after I started my business, which was right around the time COVID hit. And I think everyone was at home and people were trying to do DIY, and everyone was bored and interested in, social media and scrolling just for, nothing else to do. And that's when I grew. So literally in that short period of time, probably in about, I don't know, less than a year or so, I think I went from only having 2,000 followers to 12,000 followers, maybe 10. I think in the last couple of years it's grown a little slower, but yeah, I went from 2,000 to 10,000 pretty quick. And then from 10,000 to 12,000, it's been a bit of a crawl, which is kind of odd. But it's been instrumental in the fact that, especially on my stories, I can kind of share my behind the scenes, work, and I have a lot of local followers as well. So even when I bring in a piece off Marketplace that's unfinished, I'll put up a thing on my story and say, for anyone who's local, if you want to claim this piece for customization, locals get first dibs, let me know, and they'll send me a DM, and they get first dibs. And when I finish a piece, before I put it on Marketplace to sell it, I'll put it on my story. Anybody who's local, this is what it's going to be listed for on my story, but it's going to be higher if I put it on Marketplace. Let me know if you're interested. So it's been really good to get a lot of local exposure and to get a lot of local business from stories, something as simple as that. So yeah, it's worked out well.
It's wicked, and it's difficult to it's difficult to be a creative run a business and also have to deal with social media and its constant change
Yeah.
to be part of the business, because I'm finding in the last like 4 months alone there's been a big change in how things are done.
Yeah.
And the way you get seen by people who aren't your followers is like there's these little secrets that they
Right.
don't tell you, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, all the, like even with Reels now, you can do the test one so that they go out to people who aren't your following audience. They go out to other people that are currently not following you to try to get followers. So,
but isn't that like the whole point of posting?
Right,
So it's like
I
they
know.
just split up the whole thing, so they just make it more difficult for
right, they're constantly changing.
Yeah, so like it's a whole other skill that you constantly have to be on top of too.
Right.
And I think
you're
that's where the
learning
growth,
and growing
right?
that at the same time as learning and growing your business. And I don't know, up until maybe 4 years ago or so, there wasn't even Reels. Reels was new about 4 years ago. And when Reels first came out, you'd put on a reel and you'd have like 10,000 viewers in no time. And now that's kind of slowed down as well. So that used to provide growth, but now that's not providing as much growth anymore, and the Reels views are low and the Stories views are lower. So now you're trying to find out, okay, where's the little secret pocket now of where you can get more engagement, and checking your algorithm and seeing where you can improve. But
And that's
yeah, it's a
difficult
challenge.
too, right? Yeah, and especially when you're a local business and you're trying to expand, and then the only options to expand kind of make it they're almost like gatekeeping it.
Yeah,
It makes it very difficult because
yeah, you almost feel like you're shadow banned. But I
almost
know I'm
right,
not.
yeah, but you're not.
I'm
It's
not,
just
'cause
it's
I've
just
checked, but
it's just
yeah, you feel
the
like
way
you are.
it's going. It's just a weird, the way they're changing their algorithms, and the way that it works is almost counterproductive for people who are using it for business.
Right.
And it kind of just, I find it's always how it is.
Right.
with
And
social
there's all the
media.
different types of accounts too. So I'm always questioning, do I have the right kind of account? And if I change to the other kind of account, then I lose access to music, and I lose access to what, like you tend to lose access to something that you need when you change the account. So I pick the account that I need, thinking I need access to those things, but then maybe I'm not the right kind of account. So yeah, it's like a puzzle that you're constantly trying to put together and decipher if you're doing it the right way, and how do you know?
No, and it's definitely the constant battle, and that's where, like even with my business, we host music festivals and shows, and I've kind of put it on the back burner now just because the industry is dying slowly, and it's just hard to deal with. But you could see the decline in everything,
Yeah.
just in the way it is, and it's just I think it's just the way the algorithms change, the product changes, and it's because it's more visual and less like photos,
Yeah, true.
which is really hard.
Because the carousels don't really perform as well. Like, if you look at all the different types of things and ways that you can post on Instagram, you can just do a single photo, or you can do a carousel, or you can do a reel, or you can do your stories, and you can do your highlights. But, none of them are really performing as well as they used to. And I used to even, on average, I'd gain about 100 or so followers a week for a while. Now I'm looking at my algorithm and I've gained 70 followers and I've had 62 people unfollow me. So I'm like, okay, so now I've only really gained 8 followers in the week, where I used to gain, sometimes up to 200. So
Yeah, and you don't
things have
want to.
definitely changed.
And like looking at your Instagram, you have a beautifully structured Instagram. It looks gorgeous. It
OCD.
maps it, yeah, and it looks good. And then you see like these just like gong shows of profiles, and they're like so successful, and it just kind of seems it's a weird battle that the two. And I find that
never know.
maybe there's going to be. I wonder if there's going to be like new ones that come out, and we still have to damage like
Yeah.
manage the waters of those ones. Like there's always going to be that constant evolve with social media, but to build that local love, that like what you said that you've built like a successful business locally, that it, for me, it's like I can only imagine what would happen when
Yeah.
you branch out
Right.
and you finally get to like Alberta and like across Canada and sending those out. Because I think that with what you've done just in BC, which is the smallest population in Canada, basically, is mind blowing. Especially for the Okanagan. It's not a lot. There's not a lot of people here. Like we were talking
Yeah, no,
before. Like
it's a pretty
Kelowna has
small town.
250,000 people,
Yep.
and you're from the East Coast, where there's everywhere you look, there's people, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I can imagine that being coming here, starting a business, and being one of the only people who does it has been super beneficial. Do you ever plan to expand to other things?
At this point, I don't know that I do necessarily because of my age. I'm not slowing down, but I'm not wanting to amp up my business or really like ramp things up too much at the age that I'm at, because I'm probably about 5 years or so away from retiring. But yeah, never say never, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure what else I would do with it other than what I'm doing right now. Like maybe if I got busier and I hired people and I had employees or something, but I'm not really thinking that I want to take it in that direction.
Are there other art forms that you ever would want to do?
Good question. I don't know. I've looked at like wall art, canvas art, plaster art, that kind of thing. So possibly even just simple things like the smalls, some people call them, like these trays, I do things like that, bathtub trays and ottoman trays and all that kind of thing, and front porch signs. But yeah, nothing else that's big. But those little things, they're easily listed on Marketplace. They make great Christmas gifts. They make good teacher's gifts. So I've sold those as well, but that's not my main business. But yeah, definitely something. And even as I retire, if I don't want to do the furniture anymore, I can fall back on all the little things and do those smaller art projects and wall art and whatever. Even like clocks. I've made a wood clock before. It's the same process of staining and sanding and refinishing and whatever. It's just a different piece of art, like you say. So yeah, possibly.
I always ask that because a lot of my friends who I've met through the show and that have become really close friends of mine didn't start their creative journey until 45, 50, 55. And now their careers are just starting to flourish.
Right.
And they're just like, it's like, what are you going to do next? They're like, I have no clue. I didn't even think this was going to be possible, right? So for me, it's like, it's always this, two lessons that I've learned throughout the 2 seasons we've done so far is like, you're never too old to start your creative journey.
Totally.
And we live in the perfect time to do whatever you want and make a career out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Your question just kind of caught me by surprise because I've never really thought about it. I'm like, I'm doing that. I'm happy doing that.
You're always so busy, right? You don't think about it. Yeah.
Not thinking of anything else because I'm busy. Like I've got a board over there that's filled from top to bottom with my stuff that's coming up for the next 3 months. So I don't really have time to do other stuff. But yeah, it's always in the back of my mind. I more think about when I'm branching my business, I might want to do a podcast. I might want to do more with my YouTube channel. It's more that kind of thing that I'm looking at for evolving, more so than taking on new art forms or expanding into other provinces and whatever. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but if I want to expand and if I want to evolve, I'm more looking at other avenues and other ways to get my name out there and to promote my business and do more of that kind of thing. And even those things, it'll be a learning curve. I'm not a techie person, but those kinds of things in and of themselves are artistic as well. Doing a podcast and doing YouTube channels and content creation and all that is also, an art. But I'll have to perfect that next.
I wonder that because what you do is something that a lot of people would watch on YouTube. Just having someone film you working on a process and you going through it, and basically what we're going to do after we're done talking is going over your process and seeing it. And that's a great way for that, because that's where we're talking about earlier. The social medias, each one is a different platform. Like Facebook is great for photos and writing big long spiels.
Totally. Yeah.
Instagram is great for videos and carousels, and YouTube is like, I find it's the one where you can be genuinely authentic and talk about and show how to do it and teach.
Longer
long form,
too.
right? And because I feel like being a teacher in pharmaceuticals and dealing with that and coming up, that transition to teaching how to do it is one thing that I think younger people don't know how to do, is like get that initial step into it, because everyone's got like these cool ideas, but the most intimidating thing is how do you start?
Exactly. Yeah, and like you say, just again with my teaching background, I'm even interested in doing things like ebooks, like anything that I can kind of branch out with more and bring my teaching background into, because teaching's all about content creation, just in a different way. But doing something like an ebook or a YouTube channel or any of those things, I think would definitely be beneficial and a good way for me to expand and put the knowledge out there to help other people and help them get into it. Because starting is, the hardest thing. Sometimes people are intimidated by it or afraid to start or afraid to take the leap, but yeah, I agree. You're never too old to start something new and to try and see how it goes. Yeah.
Well, I'm currently in that stage because music has always been my music has always been my life. And now that film is my job, and it's something that was always a passion of mine, and I don't even know how, still to this day, it's like I'm mind blown by the fact that I get to do these interviews and talk with these incredible people. But one thing I was always scared to do was dive into photography. And I love film, so I've always done it, but photography was always intimidating to me because it seems like, I don't want to say like a classier version of film, but it's harder to capture that moment.
Linked.
They are, but the difference between like sitting in front of a camera and talking is we have the film running.
Okay.
And then with film, when you're taking a photo, is capturing those moments has always been like, and then when you capture the moment and then you have to edit it, it's always been like, people aren't going to like the photo. It's just a basic photo. But now that I'm swallowed that pill, I'm like, hey, I'm going to dive into photography and see what I do. I'm finding it so therapeutic, almost more therapeutic than I ever found music.
Right. Okay.
Because music was always like, when I first fell in love with it, it was therapeutic, but then it became that I got to write music, I got to perform. It became the business, the pressure. That photography is really kind of like toned me back, and it was a form of art that I never really.
So one is the job and one is the hobby.
Yeah. So it's just kind of, I find it that it's, I could see myself pursuing a career in photography because it is that therapeutic aspect, and it goes in hand, kind of like the teaching and the woodworking and how it's all therapy and being able to help someone else. I find that that's where, if you're a creative person, you're always going to be a creative person. It doesn't matter what discipline you're in. When you were, did you find you were a creative person always, even before you picked up working with wood or refurbishing?
Yeah, for sure. Even as a kid, I was always like, wasn't necessarily a good drawer, but I would draw, and I always loved art, and I did crafts with my mom. You know, my mom was very crafty as well, so I remember sitting at the table with her making all different Christmas crafts and making wreaths and making dolls, and my grandma was a knitter and a crocheter. Like, it's always been there. But yeah, I've always loved doing things that are artsy and that are creative, but it wasn't always refinishing. It was, you know, even things as a kid. So it's always been there. It's always been in the blood. But yeah, in pharmacies, anything but creative. So it was a nice way to be able to, you know, have the balance. When I was teaching, I could have the balance of the creative side and do the teaching for work. But then when I was able to step away from my pharmacy career, then take on the creative full time. So that's the one thing too with customs that I miss, is the creative side. With a custom, other people are telling me what I need to do, what I have to do. So as a creative person, I'm not coming up with that vision myself, although a lot of my clients have been great and they have me work with them to figure that out. But that's why I like to buy some pieces on Marketplace, and I do those in between the customs, because the customs are more, like we just said with you, the customs more my job, where the ones that I'm just refinishing to sell is more the art, and that's where I do the creative stuff. So it's a nice balance. I get my paycheck is basically my customs. That's a guaranteed sale. The other ones that I take on, I'll list them on Marketplace and they sell when they sell, but at least that's a way that I can get the creative juices flowing and do something and see it through and have my vision come to life. So I like the balance.
I love that. It's inspiring to sit and chat, because I always find it mind-blowing that people can create businesses and lifestyles off of things that they come up with in here.
Yeah,
instead of, and being able to inspire the next generation to do so. Because segues, when I'm growing up, if I would have met somebody who was teaching those things, I probably wouldn't have made as many mistakes as I did, and I'd be a lot further musically as I would have. So I find that's where, like, I always talk about it on the show, is like, as a creative, it's our duty to inspire. It gets to a point in our career, our musical journey, our creative journey, where it's not about us making it anymore and being therapeutic for us. It all of a sudden just transitions to this. We need to do it for other people. And I find that that's usually when the transition, turning it into a business and taking the joy out of it, happens.
Yeah.
And it is difficult to maintain that creative love when you have it as a business. Do you ever face that?
I do, but I think because of the way that I've been able to find a balance, I feel like I've managed it better. When I first started doing customs, I was a little overwhelmed and didn't I don't know, because I'd never done them before. So I didn't really have the practice or the experience to go, okay, I can do a custom and I can do another piece at the same time. I can multitask. While this is drying and I'm working on the custom, I can flip over to this one. So having that balance has definitely helped me to navigate that, I think. But without that, I don't think that I would feel, I don't know, I don't think I'd feel fulfilled like I do. But by having the customs and the ones that I'm refinishing to sell at the same time, and working on social media and getting my creative outlet out there, and I've even done classes in my garage and run workshops where I have people come in and they do like a, 3-2-1 how to refinish furniture kind of thing in a small 3-hour class. Those things are definitely helping me to find that balance. So yeah.
I was going to ask if you were doing that, if you were doing like courses and stuff.
I have done it. They haven't taken off like I thought they would, and I think partly it's just because of where I am. People don't always love to come to West Kelowna, and it's also a garage. I don't have like a true workshop or a studio. There's some places downtown that do have that option available, so they're probably a better setup, and that's fine. But I have had a few people ask if I can do it, so I'll run it kind of on demand kind of thing. And I've had a few people even ask if they can get a group together and have me go to their home, and I've done that before. So when I get requests and I know I have enough numbers, because I only need 4 people to run a class, then I'll run a class. So yeah, that's fun too. And that kind of, again, makes me feel like I'm going back to my teaching career. So yeah, just creating basically like a classroom setup, but almost like a lab where they're learning how to refinish furniture. And we just usually do a small piece and show them how to prep a drawer from a nightstand or from a little side table, and then they can go home and they can finish it. But gives them a bit of an intro to furniture refinishing.
Yeah, because it's not something that you can dive into, like we were saying. Like, I've done guitars and I've really crappily built myself types of furniture for stands for guitars and stuff like that. But when you're diving into taking something apart, redoing it, putting it together, there's a complete different process than just buying raw materials and building and cutting it and building it, because you have to almost, you can't change anything.
You have to keep the integrity.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you have to. It has to be its sole being. You can't take away from that.
Right.
You can only add to it, in the sense of beauty. Because this is where I love antique furniture, because it's built so differently. Like we were talking about earlier, it's intimidating. As a woodworker, you're looking at some of the things that they created back in the day, and you're like, how do they keep this still to this day, and it's that well managed?
Yeah.
And then having to touch that and try and fix it, because
it stays that way because of the quality craftsmanship that they use then. Like, I look at the little tables that are beside us right now, and I've picked them up. They're not good quality pieces of furniture, and I have some of that in my house too, but I've picked them up and it's rickety. Like the drawers are kind of falling apart. They're stapled and nail gunned together. They're not dovetailed or anything. But when you look at old pieces, they're staying together for that many years because of how good the quality of workmanship was. But yeah, it's pretty intimidating the first few times. And there's pieces that I have even in my garage right now that have been sitting there for 2 years, because I'm kind of like not sure what I want to do, and I don't want to ruin them. So I want to make sure that I have a full vision in my head and I know exactly what I'm doing before I start pulling anything apart. Because some pieces even now still intimidate me.
Have you ever wrecked one?
I sanded through veneer one time and had to change my whole plan. Had to change. I was going to sand it down and stain the top, and then I sanded through the veneer with my sander. I had it on too high of a rotation, and it went right through the veneer, burned through it, and I'm like, okay, I guess it's being painted. I can't stain that now. So, just had to pivot.
That's what scares me about sanding. Even as a woodworker, that's the one aspect in woodworking I'm terrible with. I can't see it. People they can look at the surface and be like, oh, okay, there's a little bit there. Then I cannot see it. So I've never been a good finisher. It takes a while
to get to that, to know what you're looking for. And when I first started, I didn't even know what veneer was. I had no idea what grit sandpaper to use and what speed to have my sander at. All of those things come with time and practice, and you eventually get to know just by feel even. But yeah, it's definitely something that you have to practice with in order to perfect. And I wouldn't even say even now it's not perfected. I'm still learning. I wouldn't ever think I'm an expert or I'm perfect, because you're always learning, always developing the skill. So yeah.
One question I always have for people, and I usually ask it off camera, is when do you know that you're able in your skill set to teach the skill set? because this is one thing I've always wondered, is because I play 14 instruments and I understand a lot of the theory and all that, but like I would never be able to put, like, I don't look at myself like someone who could teach.
But I don't think that you need to be an expert to teach. I think you just need to be willing to keep on growing to teach. Like, I don't ever think, like, even when I look back in my pharmacy career, I'd have students who would come to me sometimes with questions and I wouldn't know the answers. You're never going to know all the answers. So you just have to be willing to be able to do some research and investigate and find the answer if you don't know the answer. Like, I think anybody can teach if they're a subject matter expert, and you don't have to be a perfect expert. You just have to be comfortable with the material, and then you can teach it. I don't think that people should restrict themselves from following that if that's what they want to do, and you can always find information and do the digging if you need to get more information if required. But yeah, I don't know.
I love it because I've never actually got to sit with someone who has educated or done teaching. Spoke with painters who teach courses and stuff, but because it is something that the world is very, especially now if you're a creative and on social media, it's pushing away from the art and who you are, and then the art comes second now, I've noticed. So they want to know who you are, what you know, the mistakes you've made, like those kind of things. And people like being taught, I find, a lot more online now. So it's a weird transition to kind of see that that's where our careers are all going in creative aspects, is like we are going to have to be teachers because that's the way we're going to have to be able to get to our art.
But online learning is such a big thing now too. It's not even just like in-class learning like it used to be. With the advancements of social media, people are doing online learning, not even just for artistic stuff, but for anything. You can pretty well. You might not be able to do all the practical components, but there's online learning for college and university courses. So of course we can do online learning for music and for furniture refinishing. Like, if you can film it, then you can put it online and teach people how to do it. It's kind of limitless. So in some ways it might not be a good thing because it's taking people away from the face-to-face, but in a lot of ways I think it is a good thing because it just shows the advancement of how far we've come with social media. So definitely can use it to our advantage. Yeah.
I definitely think that's the two perfect elements of it. Is if you're a person who can learn by being taught how it's done, online is perfect. If you're like me and you physically need to touch things to learn how to do it, I like that one-on-one. And I think that's what I miss about like certain classes in school and college and stuff like that, was that one-on-one where you have two men minds melding, and it's not just you watching someone talking that's not physically there.
But you can even still have the touch and feel component online, as long as you give the person a supply list and they have that at their own home.
That is true. I didn't
so
think about that.
Thinking outside the box, right? Like I can be in my garage with my supplies, but I can tell people ahead of time, hey, we're going to be doing a course on Thursday. Make sure you have your sander ready. Make sure you have this paintbrush ready. Make sure you have this grit of sandpaper, whatever the case may be. If they have that supply list, then they can touch and feel. So even a hands-on learner technically can still learn online as long as they have all of the supplies at the ready. Like, I guess that just depends on, whether they have a garage full of equipment or, a studio full of musical instruments. It just depends on what they have available. But if they have that, then even that's possible even when you're not face to face. Yeah.
It's true. That's a great point that I never actually thought about, is doing courses that way where it's not live streamed, but it's because I feel like that would be a great access for the live streaming, because then you have that. But yeah, it's a weird world that we live in as a creative, I find, and it's awe-inspiring to me every day when I see what people are capable of doing.
And it's evolving so much, for sure. Yeah, because like online tutorials, I've done a lot of that, and it's just a matter of putting that up on my Instagram feed and people follow along. And even if they don't have what they need when they first watch it, it might inspire them to go out and get what they need and then bring it to their own garage and have their own. I've had people order paint from me because they've watched a video and they want to try it themselves. So they order the paint from me, they order some brushes, they order some top coats, they order whatever, and then they get a little piece and they try to refinish it. So those tutorials definitely snowball into basically online learning, even though we might not be calling it that. That's what it is.
Right, and that's kind of like the point that I'm loving is that you don't have to go to school or go to specific experts to learn these skills because everything is online.
Yeah.
It's just trying to find the right teachers online, because there's a lot who, like online, for example, with YouTube, there's a lot of people who are great at convincing you they're an expert.
Yeah, true.
But they're just quite literally talking about nothing, and then you read the comments and see somebody who actually is like an expert in their thing, and they're like, you went through that and explained it in the worst way possible. But because it looks good visually, they get tons of views. So that's the one thing I find is difficult with online learning is
to weed out
you gotta
who
go
the
you gotta
experts
sift
are
through
from,
it. Yeah.
Well, even with medical advice, like, looking online, there's lots of people who give medical advice online, but it doesn't mean that it's accurate. So yeah, exactly what you're saying. You have to know what to weed out, and you have to decipher what's authentic and what isn't. Yeah, for sure.
If you were to, because we're coming up on the hour, and then we can dive into watching you do some work, but if you were to give an aspiring artist or woodworker, somebody who wanted to follow in the same kind of footsteps as you, what would your initial advice be for them to start their career?
I would probably just say to start small. Don't take on something too big because it's going to be intimidating. Start small, start simple. You don't want something that's too intricate and detailed and whatever, but when you're starting off, like a small side table is a perfect thing, or a little like night table, nightstand. They're small, they're easy to manage, they're not going to be super intimidating, there's not usually a lot of detail, but if you start with a little piece and clean it and follow all the prep steps and, again, follow along with somebody who's got some tips online and whatever the case may be, then you're typically going to be pretty successful with it. It's just a matter of jumping in and, I always tell everyone it's just paint. Like, even if it goes wrong, all they have to do is sand it back off. You can sand down a piece 3 or 4 times until you perfect it, until you get the hang of it. But at least just jump in and try and start small. And if you ruin it, then you just take it back off and you start over and you try again. Yeah, I don't know. I started my first piece that I did, quote unquote, professionally, was just a small little bedside table. And I bought it, I think, for $25. I made a couple mistakes on it that I sanded back off, and then once I was happy with it, I listed my very first one ever. I listed for $175 on Marketplace and sold it in 2 days. So you never know. Just have to jump in and try. Yeah.
And I think that's an empowering thing, because a lot of people, especially nowadays, want to be self-sufficient, and they want to do something that they're proud of to leave behind, or at least to be known for. And I think that there's a big push for self-sufficient creativity nowadays, and I don't see it slowing down.
Yeah.
I only see, especially with the younger generation, they're very, I don't want to say like hipstery where it comes to like the furniture and stuff they want, but like they do want unique pieces.
And they're way more in tune with sustainability.
Exactly.
I think the younger generation is way more in tune with that and wanting to be environmentally friendly and not see pieces fill up the landfill and not have pieces thrown in the garbage. And a lot of my clients that I have are younger people starting out. And again, it's a cost saving thing too. It's not just the sustainability. They might not have the money to go and spend $4,000 on a bedroom suite, but they can bring me their grandmother's bedroom suite and I can refinish it for $950. So that's what they're going to choose to do if they can save the money and have the benefit of it being sustainable living as well. So yeah, I find that the younger generation's definitely more in tune with that than people were 30 or 40 years ago. Yeah.
You definitely see it, especially with, like we were talking before about my friend Scott and his upcycling of the metal. In the last, we've done 2 episodes with him. One was just a speak.
Whoops.
No worries. One of them was just a sit down talk with him, and then we got to sit down and watch his process on this last season. And since then he's had pieces starting to get out more. And I think it's once people see what magic is in the Okanagan, then they really realize, okay, I want to be part of that culture.
Right. Yep.
And how do I get that culture in? Because like the craft beers here are everyone loves their craft beers, their
Yeah.
wineries, their painting.
Yep.
I love to see the other art forms getting out
Right.
there, and that's kind of why I like getting to sit down with creative people. And if it's an hour talk or an hour of watching somebody do their craft, it just kind of it's once it's out there, it's there to the
Yeah.
universe,
Yeah.
and people will start to see it, and it's kind of
Totally.
the beauty of where we're at.
Yeah.
Because
But there are so many small local businesses here and so many creative people and entrepreneurs in the Okanagan. It's quite interesting to see. I haven't lived in a lot of places, but I was pretty surprised to see that in the valley. So it's pretty cool. Yeah.
yeah, it's a little
And they're
group.
so everyone's so supportive of everyone else too. It's not like I don't feel like I'm competing with other refinishers in the area. If anything, we lift each other up and we support each other. And if I don't have a piece and I think my client might want to buy a piece from this other refinisher, I'll recommend them. And if the other refinisher doesn't do custom work, then they recommend me, and we kind of tag team each other a little bit. So it's nice to see the support within the community. There's, like the saying goes, there's room for more. Like, we're not really competing with each other, and we all tend to have our own, even though we're all refinishers, we all have our own style as well. So we're not even really directly competing in that way. So it's been really nice. Yeah.
That's a magical thing to hear, because I think a lot of people think within the arts communities there is a lot of competition, especially just because of that initial social media mentality of you're competing when you see your friends have more followers than you and things like that. Like, I'm very guilty of it. I'm like, how? You know what I mean? And it's just because
Imposter syndrome.
well, I'm just not, I don't like to be on camera unless it's like this.
Right.
Like, I don't like to talk to the camera kind of a thing. So I have a really hard time on social media, which is one thing I know I'm conscious of that I've got to change if I want to be successful in what I do. So I have consciously made that change to start doing it. But there's just a unique time period where, like we were talking about, this younger generation is like, they're opening up to sustainability and artwork more than when I was growing up, where it was like you wanted to have the same of everything, and everyone else had to have the same house.
Even thrifting now is like such a big deal.
I love
and
thrifting.
Yeah,
so cool.
Everybody, like, that's the thing. And that was, when I was younger, it was frowned upon if you went to a bargain store or you went and bought something secondhand. That was not cool. And now that's all that they do, is they want to go and buy things secondhand and buy vintage clothing and vintage, dinnerware and whatever. So it's really swung back around. Yeah, interesting. How things keep on rolling.
Yeah, I'm curious to see I'd like to see if we get back to like that handcrafted, old-fashioned furniture building again, instead
all
of
the
like
Amish sort of stuff.
Yeah, it'd be so cool.
Yep.
I think we're good to go on heading downstairs into the garage and diving into it. I'm really excited to see some pieces, and especially like ones that you have. Do you have any you're working on currently?
I do. I actually intentionally did some stuff yesterday down there so I could show you kind of like start. I haven't finished it, but I've left some parts finished and some parts unfinished, and I kind of have it in stages, so I'll be able to explain it a little bit better. So
perfect.
Yeah,
well,
did it on purpose.
That's awesome. We'll hop in there. We will sign off, and we'll be right back, and we'll dive into that.
Sounds good.